Hi, this is Gina. Thank you for joining me today for this Astrology Chat Live for February 6th, 2025. Today, I want to focus on the Neptune North Node cycle. Um, we have a very exciting, rare conjunction that is perfecting tomorrow, which is the North Node in Neptune. And I was spending some time looking at the last conjunction and looking at the next conjunction. And I found it to be really, really interesting. And it helps to shed some light on what's going on here. So if you're curious about that, please stick around. Tomorrow, I will dive in more deeply to the significations around this transit. Um, but I will give at the end of my time today, at the end of our time together, just my number one tip for the North Node Neptune conjunction. But I also really want to go back and forward through these charts. So um, it's really interesting. Okay, so we're going to come back to the chart for right now. But what is so interesting and significant about this particular North Node Neptune conjunction is it's at the very late degrees of Pisces. And because the North Node moves around the chart this way, clockwise, and the rest of the planets move counterclockwise, the North Node and Neptune are sort of coming together right at that Pisces Aries axis, right? Which is such an interesting place in astrology. The end of the zodiac, the beginning of the zodiac. And they're sort of meeting right at the line, right towards the end of Pisces. You know, I think of the planets as, when they're conjunct, as having a conversation, of melding together, of coming together. It's a blending of the energies. You know, they say that when planets are conjunct, it's not a transit. It's not, they're not an aspect to each other. A conjunction is a whole other thing. It's the merging of the energies. So I kind of think of it like they get together and they have a really extensive, intimate conversation. They talk about where they've been and they talk about where they're going. And then those planets hold those energies until they meet again. And then they say, oh, hi, how did that go since I last saw you? Oh, okay, here's how it went for me. Here's what I'm thinking for the future. And then they do it again. And so thinking about where they just met and where they're going to be next helps us to sort of get a bigger sense of things here. So this conjunction happening at late Pisces, early Aries, it just carries so much interesting energy. And of course, we also happen to be doing this at the same time that the Venus retrograde is happening. Here, let me just sort of move this out of the way just for a quick second so we can see the rest of the chart. Or actually, I'll just make it bigger, because there's so much else going on here. This is just the ascendant because that's the time of day we're in. But we also have Saturn here. We have Venus about to go retrograde, all back and forth across that Pisces Aries point, really suggesting something about merging those energies, end of the zodiac, beginning of the zodiac. Okay, so I found it interesting. I was thinking about how if Neptune has about 15 years in every sign, and this conjunction happens about every 17 years, that means that usually they would meet up in the same sign. Good morning, White Dove Music. Nice to see you. And so I thought, well, let me look back and see if this is true. Okay, so let's look at this chart for the last time they were conjunct. The last time that Neptune and the North Node were conjunct was in May of 2008. Okay, and look, it was in Aquarius. It was towards the later degrees of Aquarius, 24 degrees of Aquarius. And look, Chiron was there. So this carried a really, it's very rare and exciting. This carried a very powerful Chiron signature with it as well. So it's like fate, it's dreams, it's destiny, and then it's healing. With Chiron there too, there was a healing. So think about where you have Aquarius in your chart. think about if you have any planets or points around 24 degrees of Aquarius. I would say between 19 and 27 degrees, especially because of Chiron here. If it's, at 19 or so, that's going to pull it into this as well. Also, if you have those in Leo, it could be interesting to think about, or potentially Scorpio or Taurus. Really 24 degrees of any of those, but especially in Aquarius or Leo. Did you have any planets or points there that were affected by some sort of dreamy, faded, healing experience, right? Because with Chiron there is quite profound. So the last time we had this conjunction, it was in Aquarius, and the very next sign is Pisces, where we're having it now. Wonderful. But it got me thinking, it's at the very end of Pisces. So if it's going to be another 17 years before we have another conjunction like this, are we going to have one in Aries? Or are we going to skip over Aries? And sure enough, we are. We're skipping over Aries. Check out this chart that I pulled. So we have to go pretty far into the future to look at the next North Node Neptune conjunction. Forgive my amateur setup here. Good morning, Andrea. Nice to see you. So yeah, we have to wait all the way till 2041 until we get this conjunction again. And sure enough, it's happening in Taurus. It's happening in Taurus. It's not happening in Aries. So we're skipping over the North Node conjunct in 2008 in Aquarius. And then it was conjunct in Aquarius. And then in 2025, it will be conjunct in Pisces, but at the very late degrees. The next time it happens, it will be in Taurus. And I didn't pull the chart for it, but the next time it happens, it will be in Gemini, and it will go and hit most of the signs. Occasionally, the Neptune North Node conjunction gets cycled twice, and occasionally it misses it. It's sort of like a new moon, blue moon thing. So we're skipping over Aries. So a couple things. One thing that I think this really means is it means that we're carrying even more intensely that signature of the Aries-Pisces axis. Not axis, but the Aries-Pisces houses. That end of the zodiac, beginning of the zodiac. Yes, Neptune and the North Node are meeting up now at the very end of Pisces, but remember that the North Node just finished 18 months in Aries. So the North Node is all steeped in Aries, and now it's conjuncting with the North Node, and they're having a conversation. So I think that just pulls in the Aries energy into this conjunction even more than I thought. And that is especially true because we have Venus newly here, going to go retrograde back through this sign and house. Mercury is actually going to do something similar while this North Node Neptune conjunction is still active. We will have Mercury come into Aries, and then both Venus and Mercury will be retrograde in Aries at the same time. The sun's going to be there as well. So even though this conjunction is Aries, I think it's carrying a lot of, is in Pisces, I think it's carrying a lot of energy from both Pisces and Aries, and that we need to consider that. It's also interesting to think back to 2008. Think about what was going on for you in the spring, early summer of 2008, where Aquarius rules your chart, if any planets were affected, and to think about that particular North Node Neptune conjunction as incredibly healing. And it's so interesting that it did it in Aquarius when we have so much Aquarius stuff opening up now. It's like that healing work is now complete. They can move on and do this stuff in Pisces. Now Pluto's in Aquarius, helping us to move work forward in that sign and house in that way. So, like for me, I think it's pretty interesting that my Venus was affected by this transit. In 2008, my Venus is basically right here. And then this time, my Sun and my Mercury are at early degrees of Aries. And so seeing the way that the Pisces and Aries energies are coming together here helped me to understand how important it is to bring in those Aries signatures as well to this transit. So we will continue to talk about this. It is a pretty rare transit. It only happens every 17 years. And it is about dreaming big, and it is about bringing those dreams into reality, into fruition. But first, we have to dream them. So dream big right now. That actually isn't my number one tip. That's my number 3 tip is to dream big. My number 2 tip is to get around water, drink more water, walk near water, enjoy a wonderful bath. Basically anything that you can do with water with so much in water signs is going to be soothing. And, you know, if things feel a little watery or confusing, to just sort of allow yourself to dream and drift like that might be really helpful as well. But my number 1 tip for this time period, not just because of the North Node Neptune conjunction, but because of everything else that's happening in Aries or in Pisces, and because of just everything else that's going on in the sky. My number 1 tip, I'm going to actually show you some snow. Let's look at the snow while I tell you the number 1 tip. We have some nice snow today. It's nice to see. I don't have to always look at the screen. Sometimes it's nice to see some lovely snow while we talk. So my number 1 tip is to lean into a spiritual practice right now. We all need it. We all really, really need it. There is so much happening in the world. There's reflections of that in the astrology, and it's a crazy time. So now is a really, really good time to re-up your spiritual practice, to commit to something, whether it's meditating a bit each day or taking a walk in nature each day, whatever you can do to lean into that spiritual life, your spiritual practice will serve you very well. Oh, Andrea, it's so nice to see you as well. And I'm glad that it's snowing where you are too. I think it's supposed to turn to freezing rain here, but I'm enjoying it for now. Yes. Beautiful. I love what you're saying about 2008. It was a very, very big year for me too. And yes, agreed. It was a time where some big dreams began to manifest. So now notice where this current conjunction is falling in your chart and how that might tie in. Yes, Andrea, I love what you're saying here. Do you know your rising sign? If you know your rising sign, that is the way to tell. You use your rising sign. I bet we are near each other. Yes, use your rising sign to tell. Capricorn. Perfect. That's exactly what you want to do. On my channel, actually, I do horoscopes by rising sign. And so you can look at, I think, January and February, I address that Pisces, that Pisces part of the sky. So it will tell you where it is in your chart. But let me think, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, it's in your 3rd house. Your 3rd house is all about communication. And it also has to do with your local area, like your neighborhood, and just sort of how you navigate your local area, like what you sort of do day to day. And the 3rd house also rules siblings and extended family. It also would be interesting to know if you have any planets in Aquarius. Do you have, or in Pisces? Do you have any planets at those late degrees of Pisces or early degrees of Aries? Because they would be affected too. And that can be even more powerful than the house placement. But I think you'd like if you enjoy my content, I think you'd really like the horoscopes on my site. I notice a lot of people only watch one or the other. It's like 40% of people who watch my channel only watch the lives. Another 40% only look at the horoscopes, and then there's like a small percentage of people who do both. But I feel like if you like one, you'd like the other. So check those out if you'd like. And I'll be back again tomorrow to talk more about this and talk about the significations, some main points and things to expect with this conjunction. Thank you all so much for being here. Have a great day.